RYLACast, the official podcast of Camp RYLA 5810. That's a district number. My name is Greg Tupper, and sitting to my right, the man they call Josey, Andrew Utz.
Well, hello, Greg.
Well, hello, Josey.
Well, hello, Greg.
Thank you for joining us on this podcast. I'm speaking to the audience, not you.
Oh, I was like, well, you're welcome.
It's kind of your job to be here.
I mean, thank you as well. Even though it's your job, it's nice to be thanked.
Okay,
So
now you're making
you.
me feel bad because I kind of rescinded the thanks because the thanks was for the audience.
I know, but I didn't listen to that one.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. What are you doing? This podcast, we're 45 seconds into this podcast, and you can't... It's off the rails. This is the official podcast of Camp RYLA District 5810. We appreciate you spending a little bit of your day with us. One thing that I've noticed about this podcast, have you heard this? Have you heard people like to exercise listening to this podcast?
Like to exercise?
Yes, I've heard people say, you know who told me that, I don't know if she wants me mentioning this on the air, so I won't mention her name, but a prominent RYLA staffer said that they exercise listening to this podcast. So keep running.
Or exercising.
You're doing the great exercise. This is now a motivational podcast for that. Keep going.
You got it.
You got it. You're doing great. Here's some motivational music.
Wipe that sweat from your brow. Is this Barracuda or the Rocky theme?
I don't know. I was just doing. I don't want to get flagged for like DMCA or something like that.
Call.
I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, appreciate you spending a little bit of your day with us. A little bit later, big time guest. We will go to the RYLACast hotline.
What?
The RYLACast hotline.
Oh man.
Yes, we will go to the RYLACast hotline and bring in the third member of Prestige Worldwide. The all-powerful, all-knowing, ever-present Brett Scroggins will join us coming up here in the middle segment. But Brett, per usual, we've allowed our guest to choose our fate. Essentially, we don't have anything to do with this podcast. Like the creative part of it has been totally farmed off to the guests. We just have to do what they say.
That's correct.
And Brett, we give them a list of words, and then they choose, or phrases, and they choose off of that, and we shape a whole darn podcast around it.
The whole thing.
I can't believe we give them this much power. What a mistake this is.
I mean, I think it sounds good, though, and it motivates people.
I guess. But at what cost? Anyway, so today, Brett Scroggins has, in infinite wisdom, chosen leading by example. Leading by example. And so I've got the first segment. I've got something to think about. And I was thinking about this. Thinking about leading by example. And I could pull up any number of books. I think leading by example is probably one of the most talked about, recognized, and utilized forms of leadership. I think almost lead by example is bordering on cliche.
Why do you think that is?
I'll tell you why I think that is. Josey. Why I think that is because I was looking through and I was trying to find some succinct way to pull this together for this segment. And it just struck me that leading by example is the form of leadership, and arguably the only form of leadership, that you are always doing. Whether you are consciously or unconsciously doing it, you are leading by example. Us on this podcast, we have not set out to be leaders in this podcast. We're just meat puppets who speak in a microphone every once in a while, every 2 weeks.
Right.
But in the end, everything you do is setting an example for people who look up to you. So in a lot of ways, I think the better question is, who are the people that you're leading, and what are they seeing by your example? Because for example, we talked a lot in a previous episode or a coming episode, depending on whatever order we release these in, We talked about listening, right? And we talked about the value of listening in leadership. We did an episode about patience, about the value of patience. And I think there are definitely times, listening is maybe a bad example, but patience. Let's take patience, for example. Patience is definitely something that we should practice. But there are also times in which, you know what, the patience has run out. Right? You know what I mean? Like, it is no longer prudent. It is no longer the smart thing to do for you to be patient.
You just got to do it.
You just got to go out there and say, you know what? I'm at my wit's end. I've got to cut bait. I've got to move on. But here is something in leading by example that there's no off switch, in my opinion. And it can be as big as I am going to go. It can be as big as a guy like Scooter going up there at camp and being a facilitator for the campers and saying, here's my example, and being forthright about it and saying, I think that it is prudent for you to follow this example. It can be as simple as that. Or it can be as minute and small as just going to work and doing your job and not complaining. And because in a lot of ways, I think that leading by example is the thing you're not allowed to turn off. Once you are recognized as a leader, this is stuck to you. And this is something I think you always have to be cognizant of. Because you are constantly a leader. Now, you know, we can talk certainly about integrity, about the things that you do when people aren't looking. But I would make the argument that once it has been determined that you are a leader, then leading by an example is not optional. Leading by example is happening whether you like it or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
In a lot of ways, for example, let's take my job, right? My job, there are a couple of people who work for me, theoretically. There are a couple of guys that I work with. Let's put it that way. And if I'm slacking off, that is only going to encourage them, say, oh, well, if he's doing it, I can slack off as well.
Right.
I have to lead by example. Whether or not I've chosen that is irrelevant in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be the example that I want to see in people who work for me, in interns or anything like that.
Right.
So to me, when Brett chose leading by example, the thing that struck me is like, okay, that's just called being a leader. That's just called being identified as someone who leads people, as someone who is respected in that sort of way. Because to me, that's not something you could flip off.
Yeah.
That's not something you can say, oh, well, I am a leader. I am a leader, yes, but don't follow my example right now. Everything you do, and I hate to put that in sort of pressure on you, but I think it's true. And I think that in the end, this is about being a complete person and being a complete leader and somebody who does the things that you want to see from the people you're leading all the time. Because to me, this leading by example is not an optional type thing. I was thinking about that a lot, and kind of I was Googling around. I was trying to find something that was really a thing, but it's just not. It just doesn't strike me as the kind of thing you can get away from.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it goes against like the whole "do as I say, not as I do." That doesn't apply.
No,
that can't apply.
It's not. No, it's at that point. At that point, you have to turn in your leader card. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that is not something that you are allowed to subscribe to if you are truly a leader. In my opinion, I know this sounds very like passionate, but at the same time, I really do think about that. I think about how if you don't, you're not allowed to. This kind of goes to your point about hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. That's going to get sniffed out real quick by people who are following you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're saying, hey, I need you to work hard, but then you're over here, playing around on your phone, well, people are going to know. They're going to say, why don't I just play around on my phone?
Well, yeah.
That to me, I don't know. The idea of leading by example is such a cornerstone of leadership that I think they're so inextricably tied that I can't imagine anyone leading without it.
I would
That's
agree
where
with
I'm
that.
at on it.
Well, thanks for giving us.
I'm happy to have you disagree. If you think that you can lead without leading by example, if there's a way to be a leader, now but even one thing people would say is and that's a big thing at campus. It's not about being the loudest person. You know what I mean? It's not about talking the most, and that's true. But you know what? Those people are still paying attention to you,
Right.
and you can still influence people even if you're not talking, just by the way that you go about your business.
When I was thinking about leading by example, the idea of servant leadership came into my mind, but that really doesn't apply here. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. I mean, you're still.
But at the same time, here's the thing: to the idea of servant leadership, aren't you? If you are truly a servant leader, isn't it part of your responsibility to inspire others to want to be servant leaders as well?
Yes.
Right?
By your example.
By your example.
Yes.
And that's where I think every form of leadership, whether it's in business, whether it's in volunteering, whether it's in your family, whether it's in your community, I think everyone has a base requirement, if you're going to be in some sort of leadership position, that you have to lead by example.
Yes.
There's that. That's just something to think about. I didn't mean to get fired up.
I love fired up Greg.
I don't know. I didn't mean it, but I started thinking about that a lot. I don't know. It seems like it's just not optional.
Right.
It's part of the fabric of being a leader.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. All right, enough about me. Enough of me talking. We've got a big time guest coming up here. Let's get him on the phone line. We will bring Brett Scroggins in on the RYLACast if you stick with us. Oh, Josey.
Hey, Greg.
Let's go to the RYLACast hotline.
Ooh.
That's right. We have a hotline.
This is new.
People don't know this.
Man.
We're not giving out the phone number, mostly because it's my phone. But anyway, let's go to the RYLACast hotline and bring in the third member, but one might say the number one member of Camp RYLA's most powerful trio.
Yes.
We bring in the man himself. We're joined on the phone line by Brett Scroggins. Yay!
Hey, thanks, guys. Yeah, long-time listener, first-time caller. Really appreciate you putting me through.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we appreciate you. Where are you coming to us from?
I'm coming to you from the beautiful city of Austin, Texas.
The 512, if you will.
Zilker Park.
Although I'm learning a little bit about our history based on your recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
The Midnight Assassin.
Yes.
Little.
Are you reading it?
I am reading it currently, yes.
I did it! I sold a book! It's not even mine!
You sold two.
You did it, man.
I have one on my coffee table.
I'm telling you guys, it's a really good book.
I'm learning all about the city. It's great.
Brett Scroggins joins us on the hotline. And first and foremost, Brett, we start every interview the same way. So I hope you've been listening. We're going to ask you to tell us your RYLA story.
All right. Yeah, so I guess my RYLA story started back in 2002. So my brother, as a 6 years old, he went to camp, came home, slept about 18 hours when he got back. And I was like, what did you do? And then he couldn't stop talking about it. So when my junior year rolled around, I bugged my counselor until she gave me an application. Interviewed with my next door neighbor, which was fantastic.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Who also covered like our high school baseball team in the local Frisco paper. So yeah, thankfully he let me in.
And you've been coming back for a while now. What kind of different roles have you held in the RYLA program?
Yeah, I've been super fortunate to come back. I know Becca kind of talked about this, and I kind of felt the same way. Within like the first 3 or 4 hours of being at camp, I knew I wanted to come back. So thankfully they've let me back basically every year since. I've been back as an AC, on alumni staff, as a counselor, and then like you said, I was very fortunate to join you two gentlemen as some of the assistant directors for camp last year. So kind of run the gamut.
Sorry, Greg just caught me off guard here. I've been sitting here listening.
I know. I pointed at you. I was like, Josey, your turn to ask a question, and then
I got nothing.
I'm not editing this out, by the way.
And nothing. Perfect.
No, so you're calling us from Austin. So what are you doing in Austin? Like in general?
That's a great question. just life in general. Yeah, I'm just figuring it out. No, so I about 2 years ago, I was a high school math teacher up at Lone Star High School. Greg, mascot.
Go Rangers.
Perfect. And my RYLA friends inspired me to quit this great job that I had and, pursue my dreams of going back to grad school. So I returned to grad school, went to UT, graduated, about a year ago at this point. And I do data science work at a tech startup right now.
How would you say that you use the things that you learned that you take from the RYLA program, both as a camper and then also in your extended experience with the program? How would you say that you take those things and apply them to your quote unquote scare quote adult life?
I'm glad you used quotes there.
Thank you.
So I like to say this, and it sounds like a big statement, but for me, camp was really the kind of single most impactful experience that I've ever had in my life. I don't have kids. I'm not married, so those might one day take the place. But that's a huge statement. But I mean, if I think of really what camp provided for me, when I went to camp, I was like most high school kids, a little self-conscious, pretty shy. And it really transformed me to find a voice and help me to understand that I was capable of a lot of things. And so I think the biggest takeaways from camp for me was that personal development, really believing in myself, but also the friends and support system that I've gained from my original experience, my camper experience through even today, have gone a long, long, long way in making me to the person I am now.
Okay. So I guess along those lines of kind of where you are now, we've asked you to, like we ask all our guests, to choose a word or phrase that they'd like to talk about. So what word or phrase did you choose for this podcast?
Yeah, so the word, or I guess phrase for me, was leading by example. Mm-hmm. That's something that I really learned from an early age, I think. My family was really kind of big on this. They didn't really tell you what to do. They would just do what was the right thing. And I really, I never realized this until I was a camper. And one of my sister campers, we do those notes at the end of the week. She left me a note that said she really liked how I lead by example. And, take that to heart and remember it. And I actually still have the note. And I do remember it every year when I pull out my RYLA binder. And so that's what I wanted to use as the word or phrase for the week. I think that goes a long way, and something that I guess I took away from camp is one of my bigger things that I remember is that you always don't have to say something. You can always just do the right thing, and then people will follow that example. And so that's a big thing that I know we kind of talk about at camp. Sometimes listening is the best way to lead. And that's something that I thought would be a useful lesson.
Brett Scroggins, our guest here on the RYLAcast. Brett, I've got a number of things to ask you. First and foremost, about joining Prestige Worldwide last year, which of course was
it was an honor of a lifetime, man.
So the trio of assistant camp directors, which was the three of us, actually. Yes. This is it's more or less a reunion. How would you say that Prestige Worldwide became the camp-wide phenomenon that it is today? Because I feel like that's I don't think it's overstating it to say that this is easily the greatest trio of assistant camp directors ever assembled at any camp ever.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I'm just glad I was on with you two guys. Y'all are the ones that really brought the energy, the enthusiasm. I was just trying to keep up.
Well, we were obviously proud. We were very happy to have you. And okay, someone's calling my phone. Hold on a second. I'm gonna hang up on it. It's probably
Did I just get put on hold?
No. We're someone is calling Greg's phone.
I'll be able to edit that out.
Okay, he's gonna count us back in.
Sounds good.
I'll count us back in. Give me a second. In 3. Actually, I'll count us in if you ask him to plug something.
Okay. Yeah.
In 3, 2.
Yes, so like we do with all of our guests here on the RYLACast, Brett, we like to invite our guests, let them tell us their story, and then plug something at the end. So do you have something that you'd like to promote, whether it's local for you or local for us?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I've really enjoyed lately is I actually subscribe to a couple publications. And The Athletic is the one that I've really been reading a lot into lately. I'm a big sports guy, so they have really interesting articles on kind of whoever your teams are. So for me, Rangers are in season right now, so they have podcasts as well that are linked to that. And really, really enjoying my subscription to The Athletic. Shout out to all those smaller publications out there too.
Thanks,
Greg.
Man. We really appreciate that.
Yeah. That's what I'm here for.
I will let Levi Weaver know that he has an avid reader because he's the Rangers reporter for The Athletic, I believe.
Weaver Wire,
okay.
So speaking of which, and to close this out, and I don't mean to overstate it, but we are joined on the phone by a member of the 2009 Frisco Centennial Titans baseball team. I've got your Max Preps page pulled up here, Brett.
Man.
I think my ERA might be a little inflated on there, but other than that, it should be should be pretty accurate.
So it says that right now you got a cool ERA of 6.18. Not
okay.
Okay, all right.
Oh no, that actually sounds about right.
That sounds about right. But really, we're also looking at this. You're a guy at 349 on base percentage. That'll play. 15 RBIs. How would you scout yourself as a baseball player?
High school me? It's pretty easy. Just throw me a breaking ball in the dirt and I'll swing at it every time. I basically had an all or nothing swing in high school. And, 140 pounds soaking wet really translate to a power hitter. So
okay, so here's the thing. You are listed on maxpreps.com. This is 100% true.
I know what I'm listed as.
What are you listed at?
It's like 170.
175.
Yeah. I think I hit that like junior year of college.
I was going to say, I've met you, and I don't
what
know
I weigh now.
I was going to say, I don't think you're 175 pounds right now.
I get there every once in a while.
That's like, and I deal with that in my line of work. I get coaches who are goosing their players' numbers every once in a while. But yeah, 175. That was the thing that struck me most of all. So it says outfielder and catcher. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I was right fielder, and then when our catcher was either resting or pitched, I was our backup. So yeah, I was the smallest catcher of all time.
The Isaiah Kiner Falefa of Frisco Centennial.
So are you like?
But like 2 levels ago when he was still skinny.
So are
back when he played in Frisco for the Rough Riders? Yeah.
Are you the catcher that throws the mask off at the pop fly, or can you see through the mask to catch the foul ball?
It's not that hard to see through the mask. So I did throw it away just because they told us to, but I think it's possible to catch with it on.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the official catcher of Camp RYLA. Give it up for Brett Scroggins.
I don't know if I like that nickname. Thanks, guys.
Our thanks once again to Brett Scroggins joining us on the RYLAcast hotline.
Yes.
It's a pretty cool hotline, I have to admit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just in awe of how cool the hotline is.
And beyond that, I thought that he was great, that he was a first-time caller, a long-time listener. It makes me feel really good.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that. And now, with something to leave you with, we go to Andrew, Josey, Utz.
Well, thank you, Greg. Something to leave you with. So I was thinking a lot about what Brett said and a lot about what you said when you were fired up in the first segment.
I was fired up!
and I liked it. And in my research, I found a quote by a German-born French philosopher and Nobel Prize winner.
I'm sorry. What? No, run that back. There's a lot of Middle Europe going on there.
Yeah, German-born French was the. I don't know. It may have been Wikipedia. I know it wasn't a reputable source.
Is his name?
But his name is Albert
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia. Albert Schweitzer.
Schweitzer.
And his quote is, "The three most important ways to lead people are by example, by example, and by example."
Mm-hmm.
Which, to your point earlier, that's the ingrained point of being a leader. You signed up to be a leader. You've got your leader driver's license, and those are the keys.
Yeah.
And that in your story, discussion point, whatever we want to call it, reminded me of a job that I had out of college. I won't name any names, but it was for a company that needs to stay on track, if you know what I mean.
Needs to stay on track, if you know what I mean. Oh, I get it.
So
you were working for the Daytona 500.
That's exactly right.
Got it.
And there was a manager of a manager of a manager who I did not agree with his leadership style. I obeyed him because he's the head honcho. But there's one thing. We had a policy, and the job was very mobile. We needed to be available 24/7 by phone. And we had large swaths of territory that we needed to drive to. And one of the rules, company rules, was you can't text and drive. And if you needed to call and drive, you had to have a hands-free headset.
Okay.
I, by the way, love those rules. So
yeah, if you're listening to this podcast, and I guess, I don't know, you would have to be listening hands-free if you were driving. Or maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe if you're holding your phone up to your ear and listening to this podcast, shame on you. Stop doing that. Pull over.
And email us at inforyla5810@gmail.com.
Right now, just go ahead and just pound out the email real quick.
But he really hammered the point home, of you can't be on your cell phone, and he went a step further and said, when I drive, I put it in the glove box. I don't even have it out to tempt me. And a couple weeks later, I was driving around and saw him talking on his cell phone while driving.
No!
Yeah. And it was, he didn't know it was me. But that was my probably first real world gut punch of leading by example, and the wind just going out of my sails. Just because I didn't agree with the guy's leadership style, I still respected him. But after that, I was like, man, that's the do as I say, not as I do thing.
Can I give you an example of something I'm still working on, but an example where I fall short of being of leading by example?
Absolutely.
I just thought of. So I am pretty bad overall. I would say I'm average to below average at returning emails.
Okay.
I'm bad at this. I don't like, and there are folks that I work with in my office who are so good about it. Who, if it's an email, even if they just write thanks or okay or 10-4, they're really good about it. I'm not. I'm a guy who, and I know I've learned all those little tips and tricks that if it takes you less than 5 minutes, you just need to do it right then, right?
Right. Yeah.
But for some reason, email occupies this other option, this other world. And yet, if someone that works for me or a contractor doesn't get back to me in a timely manner, I'm mad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm upset. And that's something I'm working on. I will admit I'm working on trying to be better about returning emails. But I don't know. It's just that's something I struggle with.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because leading by example, we all trip up. We're all human. This leadership thing is not a thing. You're not awarded your leadership ribbon at the end of it. It's an ongoing journey, in my opinion.
I agree.
So, if you falter, that's fine, but just get back up and try to
I'm trying.
Get back on that email
There's
horse.
so many emails. Though.
Well, and I'm sure you mentally respond.
That's the thing. A lot of it is like I'm just like, okay, great. Like somebody tells me, somebody will write something, and they'll say, and then they'll circle back like a week later and be like, hey, by the way, did you get that email? I don't know. I don't love sending an email and be like, got it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I don't need to. I don't know. That's
it's just
something
space trash.
right
Just out there.
It's just like
really
in my mind.
anything.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm like, thanks. You know what I mean? Like if you were supposed to send me something and you sent me something, I need to be better, especially those like confirmation of receipt emails. That's where I need to be better at. So, this has been a very humbling episode of the RYLACast, and now I feel now I need to go return some emails, but not while I'm driving.
Not while you're driving.
Don't do that.
No.
You know who would never email while driving?
I don't know.
I was going to say William Howard Taft.
Oh.
Probably never. But probably because they didn't have any.
Which you don't have to.
That's fine. I bet none of the presidents. No, that's not true. Wasn't Obama really big on his BlackBerry?
But was he driving?
That's a good point because he didn't drive.
Right. This is for future podcast. We're going to get to the bottom of this.
We will get to the bottom
Presidents texting and driving.
That's going to do it for us. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Thanks again to Brett Scroggins for being our very special guest. Please rate and subscribe to this podcast. And today's antiquated way of telling a friend to listen to this podcast is
writing a letter and mailing it to your neighbor.
That's it. Do that. Josey, thank you for your courage.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time on the RYLACast.